their gravity and they can't be moved. And then what's happening before is that the actual size of the hose was off and everything, so I had to do a little tweaking until I figured it out. So we had to actually change the size to something different, and then the check collision none. Now you're not actually able to really interact with them, but they're actually there when they still got their gravity. So the next thing I want to do is leave out of that. Then we want to add the actual player, which is the hammer. So we do player equals this dot physics dot add dot sprite and do open close, and then 400 comma 300 comma then string player. So what that does, it puts the hammer in the exact center of the screen and everything when the game starts up. So if you load the game right now, you notice that the hammer is kind of small. We want it to be a little bit bigger, so we do player dot set scale then open close 1.5. so now the hammer is a size plus a half. Next, we want to actually change the actual tint to it, so we do player.alpha equals 0.75. After that, player.depth equals 6. So it is not higher than the actual 10 that we set the other objects to, but it's higher than the actual hole itself, so it's going to overlap that, but not the actual restart button and stuff. Now we need to remove the actual gravity from this, because we had to give the actual player physics and everything so it actually can interact with the objects, but we need to take the gravity and things away and make sure that it can't be moved by the objects, but it can be used. So we do player dot body dot allowed and capital gravity equals false, and then player dot body dot immovable equals true. So now it can't be moved to wherever the other character's velocity when it tries to push it. After that, do player dot set then capital size open close and then 75 comma 75. So what that function does is actually reduce the actual hitbox around the character. Next, we want to do player dot body dot check collision and then dot none equals true. So now it's not even on the actual player itself doesn't have collision. So what's going to happen is that with all these things not having this collision, they're not going to interact with each other only unless they have to interact. So if the actual hammer is over the actual character, they won't do anything, but when you click down, it makes that collision turn to false. So therefore now, seeing that it's saying there's no collision, that's a false statement now. So now there is collision. Once it hits that thing, it turns the collision right back off. So the next thing we want to do is g.physics.add.overlap, then do open close, player, then comma, the hose, because these two are going to interact with each other. Then we're going to make a function. It's going to be called hammer splat. So we're going to do this dot hammer splat and then comma no and then comma this. You notice in the beginning of this, I put G. G, long story short, is the same thing as this because the actual function itself is called G. So we can either go with put G in front of everything and get confused, or we put the word this, because it's not like we're calling something else. We're calling the actual function that's calling the rest of the stuff. So we could do G, or we could put the word this. So you notice what I'm about to do next. So this dot anims dot create, we're using this now. I could have used G just like I did above, and now I do the open close for the function and then put the object on the inside of that. We want to put key and then string jump. After that, put a comma. So now this is going to be the actual jump motion of the little blue things. Go to the next line, let's put frames with an S and then write the animation in there, the actual frame number. So we do this dot anims dot generate frame numbers. So frames should be capitalized, numbers should be capitalized, and ends with an S. And then open close, then put the string baddie in there, then put a comma, then we want to put the object that says it starts on 0, then put a comma, then it ends on 12. After that, leave that, go down a little bit, and let's put frame, the capital rate is 25. So what's going to happen is that the animation is going to play them jumping real fast, and then they're going to fall right back in the hole. So at this point, we really haven't positioned the actual holes anywhere. So if you look in your upper left hand corner of your game above the number 30, you notice that little curve up there. That's the actual holes itself. So what we're going to do eventually is actually position them along the actual Whac-A-Mole board itself. But you notice if you press down now, the actual hammer has an animation. It becomes actual no longer transparent. But when you lift your finger up, it goes back to the animation and now it's transparent again. And you can actually see through it. So now let's do the next thing. So let's do this dot anims dot create. Make the open close for the actual function, and then put the parameter, which is an object. Put key, and then put a string that says splat, S-P-L-A-T. Then put a comma. After that, put the word frames with an S, and then put this dot anims dot generate, and then capital frame, and then capital number, and make sure that number has an S on the end of it. So the actual frame it want to pull from is the actual character that we made called baddie. So let's put the string baddie in there, and then put a comma, and now it's looking for what position of the actual frame want to be played. So we put that object start, and then let's start on 13 and then end on 13. After that, let's go to the next line. Let's type frame and then capital rate and then 1. I mean, because at this point it really doesn't matter, but I'm gonna put 1 just to make sure the game doesn't mess up on us. The next thing we want to talk about is adding time to it. So what if you want to have like a timer, or you want something to be triggered at a certain time? I mean, you can always do it the old school way, but inside of actual phaser we don't want to do that. So let's go over what I mean by the old school way. The actual typical way you do outside of phaser or this game development that we're doing, you do like set interval and then put a function with a timer on the end of it, or set timeout or something. So after a certain time something's going to happen. But in phaser we don't do that. We do this dot time dot add, then capital event, and do open close, and then you gotta do actual object inside of that, and then you enter its parameters. So we're gonna do delay and then 750. So what that's doing is it's saying it's going to delay the game for 3/4 of an actual second. 750 instead of being 1000 or 1000. 1000 is 1 second. 750 is 3/4 of a second. Next, you want to go with the callback scope. So it's saying, where do you want this to actually be called back at? The callback scope is going to be this, and this is pertaining to the actual game itself. After that, put a comma. So let me make sure that you know that callback is one part, and then scope is capitalized portion of that. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Next, let's go to the next line. Let's put repeat equals -1. Like I said before, -1 means infinite. After that, put a comma. Then we want to create a brand new word that says callback on. That callback gonna have an object, a function attached to it. So we're gonna put callback, then the function, and then put if game over equals false, whole hop equals phaser dot math dot between 0 and 5. So now it's trying to say that these little goblin things are gonna jump between all 5 different positions, all 6 different positions, and then let's do g.return holes, whole hop. I know you guys probably confused, like what in the world is going on, but I'm going to explain that in a second. The next thing we're going to do is add another timer event. So let's leave out of this one, make a brand new one. I mean, you can copy this and change some of the things around, but I'm going to go over anyway. So let's do this dot time dot add then capital event, the open close for the function, then put the object inside, then hit enter. After that, do delay and then 611. I think it's kind of a fair number. I'm not gonna put any other number, but I think 611 is, it's not gonna ever hit the same delay number as 750 because it's a very odd number. After that, call by scope this thing is gonna refer back to G itself. After we call it G, the game is G. After that, repeat -1. So what's gonna happen is that until you turn this game off, it's going to keep on making these things play. And the only way that these things are going to play is if the game is actually going. But it's going to keep trying anyways. After that, let's do callback. And then the function, open close, and then put the object on the end. But if game over is equal to false. Whole hop equals phaser dot math dot between 0 and 5, and then let's do g dot return holes and then whole hop. So what we're looking at here is a function that we're going to create. I'm going to call the function return whole hops, because what's going to happen is that we need to actually have different position for these goblin dudes to be set up at, and right now they don't have no position. If you were to try to actually turn the game on and do the time this.time add event and then go into your console, you notice you got an error because return whole doesn't exist at all yet. So the next thing we want to do is make one more timer, so let's do this.time add event. Now open close, and then let's put the open close curly braces, then put delay 1 second. This one right here is going to be the actual time for the game and everything. This is what's going to actually bring the game to end. So we're going to do delay and then 1,000, because 1,000 is 1 second. Put a comma, then put the word callback scope this, because it's going to actually happen inside of the game. That's what's actually calling it to occur in the first place. So now you put repeat for -1, and then callback, then function open close, and then put the object on the end. Put if time equals -1, then put time capital words dot set text game over, because once it hits 0, we're trying to get that last little 0 for the second, but once it hits -1, it's not gonna write -1. We're just gonna write game over. And then what's gonna happen is that we're gonna change the actual position of the actual restart button, put it in the center of the screen. So we're gonna do restart and then capital B then G dot X equals 400, and then restart button dot X equals 400, but the word is going to be different. Restart word is going to be 300. So we're going to do restart capital button and capital word dot X equals 300. Next, inside of that, we're going to do if score is less than the best score, then we're going to do ls.set item score then comma score. So what that's saying is that if the score that the player scored, the one that actually times out and counts down over and over every time you hit the reset button, if that's higher than what's saved, it's going to erase the actual save score and make the old score say what the new score says. And then after that, let's actually go back up to where it says restart button then word.x equals 300, and let's write game and then over equals true, because I forgot to put that in there, but we need to actually end the game once the time is up. And with the game been over being true, is going to stop the little blue dudes from jumping. It's going to put everything else where it belongs. And then we want to do, let's go back to what that if statement was. Let's go under that. Let's write a else statement, and then inside this else statement, make it say else open close and then time capital words dot set then capital text to time, and then time minus equals 1. So what is going on there is that the actual text that's in the inside of that's been changed, so whatever the number time is equal. So every single time the time ticks, it's going to take a number away, and then it's going to update the actual time with time. So you notice, like, if we was to go back to the game, you probably almost make it to a whole second where you might be able to actually click on the game, and then you get an error. The reason behind that is because when we go into where it says this dot add event listener, the little time area we just did, more than likely, even without even looking, I know the error is coming from g dot return holes and then whole hop. What's going to happen is that the word whole hop is going to give the actual random position of the actual squirrel thingies to jump out, but there's no function called return holes. So we need to go ahead and just start making these functions real quick and get the game over with. So at the end of that last function that we did, this to add time for the game over, put at the very bottom now, put this dot holes and then open dot close. So what it's going to do is actually position the holes once we actually create this actual holes function. So the next thing I want to do is create the g.hammer splat equals function. Let's do this under that. So let's leave it create, and in between the update, let's put g.hammer then capital splat equals function, and then we're just going to put like 2 letters in here. One of them is not going to be used, but the other one will. So we're going to put the first letter, we're going to put P, second letter we'll do a comma and then put H. After that, the hammer splat is actually what's going to happen